People say power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it moves quietly across borders, behind boardroom doors, through oil blocks, licenses, and contracts that never make front-page news until something breaks. For decades, one name has floated through Africa's oil and gas corridors like a quiet constant. Not loud, not flashy, just present, persistent, powerful. Arthur Eze. Known widely as Prince Arthur Eze, and often described as one of the most influential Igbo businessmen of his generation, his story is woven into the fabric of African energy exploration, elite business networks, and the complicated relationship between wealth, resources, and governance on the continent. But in late 2025, something unusual happened. Senegal, a country increasingly determined to assert control over its natural resources, made a bold move. The government revoked an offshore oil license held by Atlas Oranto Petroleum, the company founded by Arthur Eze. It wasn't dramatic, no sirens, no press theatrics, just a firm regulatory decision backed by paperwork, reviews, and a message that Africa's energy rules were changing. And suddenly, attention returned to the man many call an Igbo billionaire, a titan of Igbo businesses, and in some circles, even referred to as the richest Igbo man alive. So, who exactly is Arthur Eze? And what does this license revocation really mean, not just for him, but for Africa's oil future? Arthur Eze is not a businessman who grew up chasing the spotlight. Born into a prominent Igbo family, what set him apart was timing, vision, and an appetite for risk in places others overlooked. Long before Africa's offshore oil discoveries became global headlines, Arthur Eze was already positioning himself. Through Oranto Petroleum, later Atlas Oranto, he entered frontier markets when few international players were interested. These were regions considered too risky, too politically unstable, or too uncertain to attract the big Western oil giants. But Arthur Eze went where others hesitated. Across Africa, from Nigeria to Equatorial Guinea, from São Tomé to Senegal, Oranto Petroleum secured exploration blocks at a time when regulatory frameworks were looser and expectations were long-term rather than immediate. It was a strategy built on patience and scale. Acquire acreage early. Hold it. Wait for the right moment. For years, this approach worked. Arthur Eze's name became synonymous with quiet accumulation. Not production heavy, not media friendly, but expansive. His portfolio spread across multiple African countries, making Oranto one of the largest holders of oil acreage on the continent by sheer square kilometer count. This is why many refer to him as an Igbo billionaire, not because of flashy displays, but because of the sheer scope of his holdings. In Igbo business culture, size is not always measured by noise. It is measured by reach. Yet, reach alone is no longer enough. Senegal's decision to revoke the Kaya offshore shallow license marked a turning point. The block, awarded in 2008, spans roughly 3,600 square kilometers north of Dakar. For years, it was considered oil-prone. Seismic data showed promise. Geological leads existed. Potential was not the problem, action was. According to Senegal's Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, Atlas Oranto failed to meet critical obligations tied to the license. Required bank guarantees were not provided. Exploration activity remained minimal. No wells were drilled. Extensions were granted. Patience extended, but progress never truly followed. By September 2025, the government had seen enough. Officials made it clear, exploration rights are not souvenirs, they are responsibilities. And prolonged inactivity, especially in a country aiming to fast-track development, is no longer acceptable. This wasn't just about Arthur Eze, it was about a new Africa. Under President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, Senegal has embraced stricter regulatory enforcement. The country's recent offshore successes, like the Sangomar oil field and the Greater Tortue Amim LNG project, have raised expectations. Senegal now knows the value of its resources, and it wants operators who can move from paper to production. The revocation sent a message across the continent. Africa is no longer content with speculative licenses. Governments want drilling, jobs, revenue, timelines. For Arthur Eze and Atlas Oranto, the decision reopened long-standing debates around execution versus expansion. Critics have often argued that while Oranto's acreage footprint is massive, its production record has lagged behind. Supporters countered that frontier exploration is slow, complex, and capital-intensive, and that patience is part of the game. Both arguments carry weight. What is undeniable is that Arthur Eze occupies a rare position in African business. He represents an older model of influence, relationship-driven, access-oriented, discreet. This is very different from the new generation of African billionaires who dominate headlines with tech startups, fintech valuations, and public market listings. Arthur Eze doesn't tweet, he doesn't pitch, he doesn't perform wealth, and yet, within Igbo business circles, his name carries weight. When people describe him as the richest Igbo man, it is not always a literal accounting exercise. It is a reflection of perceived influence, asset depth, and longevity. Wealth, in this sense, is not just cash, it is positioning. Beyond oil, Arthur Eze's business interests stretch into broader Igbo businesses and elite networks. His influence cuts across political, traditional, and economic lines. He is often seen at high-level events, royal gatherings, and closed-door meetings where decisions are shaped long before announcements are made. This blend of tradition and corporate power is deeply Igbo. Commerce is not separate from community. Influence is not detached from identity. Yet, the Senegal episode shows that even the most established figures must adapt. Across Africa, governments are revisiting old contracts signed during periods of weak oversight. Zambia, Senegal, others are watching closely. Licenses once treated as long-term options are now being evaluated on performance metrics. For investors, this marks a tougher environment. Financial guarantees matter, work programs matter, dormant assets are becoming liabilities. For Arthur Eze, it is a moment of recalibration. His company still holds assets across multiple jurisdictions. His legacy as one of the pioneers of African indigenous oil exploration remains intact. But the rules have shifted. The continent is moving faster. The patience window is narrowing. And this is where the story becomes bigger than one man. Arthur Eze's journey mirrors Africa's own evolution, from early optimism to long pauses, to a renewed demand for accountability. The same continent that once welcomed anyone willing to hold acreage is now asking hard questions about delivery. Is scale enough? Or must influence now be matched with execution? For the Igbo business community, his story is still inspirational. As Africa tightens its grip on its resources, even the most powerful must respond. Whether Arthur Eze's empire adapts, restructures, or repositions remains to be seen. What is clear is that the era of silent holding is fading. The era of visible impact is rising.